For some strange reason, in Cancun, I'm really interested in listening to Vampire Weekend, like The Kids Don't Stand a Chance, stuff like that. But instead of making it $40 million, I raised it to $400 million. Not to convert down to pesos, but just because I think the song could be updated and it helps fit with my dream of winning the lottery and doing a little dance at a party where we asked Vampire Weekend to change the lyrics because of my lottery winnings. And then I named the house that I buy Parvenu, which is like a derogatory term for new money. Kind of walking down the street like it's normal. About to go to the gym. And I think I'm meeting expats tonight for dinner at a steakhouse. Cool. Talk to you guys later. This is kind of the proportions of a Mexican penis I had imagined. I think that's accurate to scale. Going to play some tennis. I hit today with one of Novak Djokovic's hitting partners. It was pretty awesome. He hits at the Miami Open a lot. And now I'm going to hit some more tennis. I think what I'm going to do for the rest of the day is I'm going to try to find a good regatta. There's the Puerto de Cancun and the Puerto de Juarez, and I can even walk down like kind of adjacent to the hotel zone. Just try to find a good regatta. I think I need one. You do some writing. The new Wes Anderson movie is interesting. At least the previews for it. Someone is telling me they met someone on his creative team at Sundance. I think it was, I don't know. They're very, very nice. Why the fuck do the seatbelt sign thing, like the little alarm in your car, why does that go off only for the front two seats? It implies the FDC, the Federal Driving Commission, believes that the back seat slamming into the passengers in the second row, their faces going into the headrest, is sufficient to stop any serious injury, albeit a minor concussion and whiplash. That is very disconcerting. I don't like this. I also think adults going to church, for the most part, it's such a family event. If adults didn't have children, there seems to be a lag in religious families when their children get into their 20s and start to do their own thing. Church becomes less of a priority. It only seems to come back into the landscape when they have children, which implies that it's some sort of like faux obligatory sense of parental guidance, maternal instinct. I have to instill the same values in my children that I'd want them to have, that I have, and that I'd want them to have. And those values are not secular; they come from the church. And it's interesting. I don't know. I'm not religious in that way, so I don't know. I'm more of a there's like kind of Thomas Jefferson. There's something, I don't know what it is, but there's definitely. We go on. I just don't know what it is. We definitely go on. The idea of non-duality is very disconcerting because it implies this subjective self, my reality, is trivial, that it's a simulated version of existence that isn't true. It's visceral, but it's delusory. And the relationships I have therein and the love and caring I have for other people is fake. It's trivialized by the very mechanism by which it flows, which is that we're all one according to non-duality and sort of like the Eastern philosophy, Buddhist idea of the afterlife and what goes on. It's very much disheartening. It's also, if this is a reality that is nondescript and we are kind of like in unison with the universe when we pass away, like existentially we are one energy source in a sense. We go back to baseline, so to speak. It implies that every experience here, which has to be purposeful to some degree, is trivialized in a general, one conscious view as being important for the sake of the whole. But if you were to take the parts, my experiences versus 6 billion other people's, what's the point therein? Why is my particular experience, my subjective experience, relevant? Why would you need so many souls to have a panoply of different experiences in summation to be complete as one? Also, why would you do such a thing if you had the capabilities and were omniscient and omnipotent in such a way to generate this? It seems a bit redundant to have 6 billion souls or 6 billion experiences that go back to baseline when you pass. It sounds more probable that we are conscious beyond this world, or we exist beyond it, and our existence here is for some sort of growth or understanding, because the next place doesn't have the pain and suffering and sorrow that this world does. It's almost like a big joke, as people on dimethyltryptamine or have had near-death experiences realize. There's this sense of eternal bliss. The children that remember, previous lives, things like that. It's suggestive of something special. And it's that the personality doesn't die. Like the soul, the uniqueness doesn't die. The things that I've experienced in my own life, which I haven't talked about on my YouTube channel or Instagram, that I can't explain them, and that they've taken me from being a complete absolute atheist to finding something, but it's disconcerting because of the nature of time, and as it relates to me, the dilation of time, the delusion of time here is segmented in like in an 80-year arbitrary span for human existence that causes so much strife and torment at times. It takes things from you. It's all about, so much of it's loss and like having something and losing things. Things are being taken from you. I dare say that it has to be in juxtaposition with something much more powerful, that you don't get that horrible negativity, as it's almost a vacuum of pure, like, either indifference or goodness. But if this is a simulated reality, the ideas therein are not based off of indifference. Pain, love, these things are inundated in our world. And so they're not here from a collective conscience or a higher one God entity arbitrarily. Moreover, it would stand to reason that one arbitrary, overseer doesn't need 6 billion people to kind of view a show, nor can he see us all at once. Nor would most of those, because you look at the extremes of people living first-rate lives and people living in poverty and people living kind of boring, indifferent 9-to-5, conformed, not trying to be in a derogatory sense, as people tend to, as they get older, conform to an existence that's kind of boring in some ways and kind of self-serving in and of itself, just to get by, pay the rent. Not that that's wrong. Not that it's just you just don't need to watch this. It seems like it's more and more for us, and it's almost like we have free will and we choose this. The interesting thing would be if the people we meet here that pass on, if we get to see them again and like choose simulated kind of like heavens, like our favorite times, and live them, cognizant of the times we've had here, rekindle relationships, talk, so to speak. Go get coffee, but in a more, I don't know, serious sense. And because that love and that existence after the fact is so eternal, we come back here to remember how lucky we are, and that because this time, this sense of time, our understanding of time here is such a delusion. If you've taken any drug ever, you just know that time is instantly becomes filtered, that our reality being filtered through our brains is a filtering system that if you add another chemical compound, changes that filter. You connect different areas of your brain on psilocybin or dimethyltryptamine. All of a sudden that time dilation and time understanding becomes completely different, and it's skewed and it's thrown off. Now imagine that 100-fold, and that might give people some understanding of how time is perceived. I think unlike Mars, there's a 2-week differential in seconds or minutes relative to here. That's a huge jump. I hope I didn't have snot in my nose this whole time talking. I'm not really looking at the camera. So, I don't know. Whoops. Enjoy it. But yeah, I don't know. I just sometimes wonder recently, like what if the level of happiness that you've had is like a utility function X, look at a curve, and it happens at a point that is before your middle age, for example, or arbitrarily earlier in the steep of your lifespan. So you have a higher utility function of happiness earlier on in the curve that eventually terminates in death. It stands to reason, based on the standard deviation model of probability, the likelihood of getting back to that point if it drops off due to loss or something horrific, like a terrible tragedy. And it makes you wonder, what's the point of everything else? Why keep going if you never get back to that? From a baseline view, the point is to feel the pain and suffering, but if you're not omniscient and it's all this theoretical, just as I've been talking bullshit the last 2 minutes, it's a qualitative layman understanding of theoretical physics and how the world works at a kind of a more philosophical, not physicist level understanding. I guess theoretical stuff that like I've expounded upon is kind of sounds very pseudo-intellectual in that way, because there's no other way to explain it without quantitative measurements. But I don't know, it seems like this world is almost like a video game in the sense of probability theory, the things we talk about and use in philosophical terms of karma and pay it forward, goes around, comes around. It's a basis for the idea that as you work towards a goal or treat others how you want to be treated, golden rule, the ratios of probability stack up to where the phrasing "make your own luck" comes into fruition by math. That your success in a level of Halo on legendary mode will necessitate your success to another level. Right? Something stupid like that. The game does not reveal itself and does not exist until you reach that level and you experience. I'm talking about quantum theory right now. And this kind of goes to Robert Lanz's idea of biocentrism, that there's a macroscopic element of quantum theory with biological organisms such as ourselves, that we create our own reality by experiencing it. Ergo de facto, in a video game, the gameplay is coded but does not actually exist or proffer itself to an absolute term until our characters get to that level. So probabilities precipitate, or rather our actions create a precipitate, which is an element of probability that we will experience a future outcome or future existence or future reality. Yeah. The problem lies, though, in the what ifs. The really hard things. The losing someone. The failure, like severe failure. These things, but like love being lost. Again, I'm alluding to something close to me that I don't really want to talk about yet, but like death. Like imagine having someone you've loved your entire life, your soulmate, so to speak, and you lose them in the first 5 years of knowing them. It's like, what's the point? The most beautiful person you've ever seen, the most talented person you've ever seen. And you have all this, I don't know, like public speak, you know, like Robbins, what's the guy with the banana hands, the tall guy, yeah, kind of like pump up speeches about how to be successful. Like the money and everything else, it doesn't matter if you don't have that person to share it with. It's like, so what's the point? That's hard. And then there's the elements of delusion, whether that's an antidepressant, another woman, substitutions, which trivialize experiences that made you suffer in the first place, which seems like a very, very disrespectful way of honoring that person that brought you to your knees when they passed away. In my circumstance, I know this person wouldn't want me to suffer. I know they also wouldn't want me to jump to a new relationship immediately. And I don't want to, nor do I have any inkling whatsoever. Or see anything, you know, that's remotely interesting in that regard. But this theory still lies. All your friends talk to you about just, hey, there's a million, you know, there's a million. It trivializes everything. And then going back full course to duality, non-duality. That person isn't an individual. They're a simulated character with careful probabilities of like a theorized cartoon of elements that are pre-programmed that we none of us really exist. I'm also not real. Goodness, what a horrific reality to face. I just hope it's not the case, because all the things I mentioned, the stuff before, it just seems counterintuitive. But then again, there's a reason why there's a differing opinion on string theory, quantum field theory, Brian Greene, whoever you want to talk, someone more like qualitative like Richard Dawkins, to Christopher Hitchens, to someone more, I don't know, it's an Italian physicist. I just read his book for the layman, Ravelli. And I read his quantitative book, which had a really hard time with, because the math is beyond me, a lot of it. Sucks, man. It just sucks. You just don't know. You just don't know if it's all a facade. Work hard, blah 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 blah. It's like, to what end? Especially when it's 10 months after the fact. Call that complicated grief or something like that. It's not that. It's a practical reality that something is not there, or that the idea that you have all this love that has nowhere to go, directed at one person. It's not your fault. It's not my fault, I don't think. It's not Prozac's necessary. well, I guess to fight and play the game of competition and survival of the fittest and making more money and buying a boat and traveling first class and all that bullshit and private planes and supermodels and whatever the fuck you want to talk about in terms of a material world. It's funny how like all that doesn't matter when you find someone, and then provided you're not a sociopath or a psychopath, but then you do, and then oh shit, all your wants change really quickly. Recognition, all that doesn't matter. It's hard. All right, talk to you guys later.